Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Inept General with some Total War Warhammer news. We had a release of information from Creative Assembly today on their Update 6, which essentially is the changes they're making to the game along with the Bretonia patch that's coming in. So all the kind of updates of the different factions, all how they're changing the abilities, really how they're addressing some of the balance of the game in both campaign and in multiplayer. And I thought I'd just go over those with you and to give you guys an idea of what we might expect going forward from Total War Warhammer. And yeah, the little teaser there, Devolve might be back as an effective spell once again, remains to be seen. But it has had a little buff, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Now, before you quick-fingered commenters amongst you go, Devolve never went away. Yes, I'm aware Devolve was always available, but it had been nerfed, and I think it's been buffed up a little bit again. Now, whether it reaches the perhaps arguably OP levels it had before is yet to be seen, but it has had a bit of a buff. But let's get into what's going on with the game when we get this new update on Tuesday, or on Wednesday, depending on whether you sign up for the Warhammer Early Access thing. On Tuesday or Monday, sorry if I said Wednesday there, or Monday. So, of course, we're getting the Bretonia update. These are a couple of the highlights that they picked out, rather than my own personal highlights. So we've got the Bretonia guide, the Bretonian armies coming in. We've got Isabella coming in. Apparently, they've done something to fix the drop hack exploit. So that's come in. AI recruitment logic has improved, so hopefully, guys, less massive spam skirmishers, or as recently happened in my Empire campaign, massive spam of Glade Lords or anything like that. So that's hopefully going to see the end of that. But they have said they've made adjustments to recruitment logic before, and we still sometimes get massive spam armies on behalf of the AI. But hopefully this will see an end to that. Quest battle maps are going to become quick battle maps available for us to play on by ourselves. And they've made some improvements to Terry, the map editor that they released in beta or alpha or in test version recently. But that will be going into the full release come this new update. Now, as far as Terry goes, they've made a little helpful video on sort of best practices, how to avoid issues with your maps, stuff like that. And we've had some great maps. I've been maybe considering showing some of them off on the channel. Let me know if that's something you guys would like to see or whether you're just happy discovering those on your own. And in general, they've cleaned up the only thing that they've done some things to prevent crashes, essentially, and they've redesigned the front end UI. I've shown you guys a couple of clips of that in the streams that we've seen so far from Total War over the last several days. But yeah, they've just sort of reworked the front end of the game a little bit, just to, I think the design ideas there were just to make it a little bit clearer for people selecting stuff. So that's really just some general tips. Now, in terms of the campaign, as I mentioned, big change to the campaign recruitment logic, and they've balanced the recruitment cost for the AI. So I think that's maybe just to help them balance the AI, balance its armies a little bit better, rather than just spamming all Savage Orc bows, or you guys have all seen it before, I'm sure, so you know what I'm talking about. Other things that stood out to me on this one was the graying out of units once they've moved. That's really good. Greenskin Rebels, particularly as I mentioned with the Savage Orc Bowmen using less skirmishers. That's good to see. Reduced number of flagellants from AI, also a good change. And yeah, just a couple of just quality of life changes, really. Some effect changes, effects of Mystifying Miasma spell, a bit clearer. Oh, this is one that it was always a bug, was always obviously a bug, but I actually found quite helpful. The very bottom one here on the list, guys. When a hero embedded within an army levels up during the end turn cycle, the army's lord, it no longer triggers a selection voiceover event. Now, I know this was probably a mistake, but it actually helped me out, because if you're just going through that list of names, I might not remember which Empire captain Bertie the Brawler is. So if I heard like Volkmar or I heard Gelt say something when I selected him to upgrade, I knew what army he was in, and I knew kind of how to gear his upgrades. So it was kind of a bug, but it was actually kind of helpful. And so that being removed is a bit of a bummer. Other people may have just found it annoying, but I found it helpful at times just to know what to upgrade my heroes to regarding the Lord's army they're in. So yeah, no more of that. I'll just have to remember their names a little bit better. So Bertie the Brawler will stick in one's mind. So be careful to maybe give them more unique names so you can remember who's in whose army, guys. In terms of battle, improved performance on Beast Path battles. Lord of Undeath, no longer available on settlement walls. And just a sort of a bunch of camera and animation fixes. I like particular highlights for me is they fixed the Sisters of Fallen Rider animations have been improved a bit. Kazarak's animations when he's on his chariot have been improved a bit. And they fixed the bug with the Gorbles when they switch hands, their axes, it used to clip a bit. But that seems to have been dealt with. But a couple of good ones. Yeah, the AI can no longer use Awakening the Wood in the air, which I think is fair enough. Okay, so moving on. Call of the Beastmen. Now, this just allows for them to recruit Law of Shadow Bray Shamans, which I haven't had the chance to do yet. I don't know what... I suppose it's just I suppose they haven't changed the look of the Bray Shamans. I don't think it's like the Empire redesign where they actually gave you a new type of wizard. They just changed his Law of Magic. Now, Morgul getting a bit of a nerf in terms of his tankiness of -20 to his magic resistance. So they are giving him a weakness of sorts. But I always kind of liked Morgul. The fact that Morgul is just this tank. This unarmored tank of a thing. So that's a bit of a shame. But it's good to give him at least one weakness. So his magic resistance has been reduced a little bit. The Red Duke's name will no longer be messed with after he goes around for a while. That's good. Now they have added a couple of abilities, including the sort of Swarm of Flies ability when vampire counts are mounted on zombie dragons. And the Arachnarok Queen, her spiderlings, are getting a debuff. And cost effectiveness of Raise Dead has been changed because essentially it's gone up. I think the Raise Dead spell, the Winds of Magic, I'm guessing that just means the Winds of Magic have been increased for Raise Dead because it was with the 8 summonings or whatever you get now. It can be a bit OP, so I'm assuming they've just driven up the cost for Winds of Magic. Now, considering the Fey Enchantress has just come out, this is a bit of a bummer, and she only has Law of Life. But the Life Bloom spell has been nerfed a touch for from 10 HP for 10 seconds to 4, which is a bit of a... So that's they've more than halved the healing ability of Life Bloom. So that's a bit drastic. I think that I don't know. I suppose it maybe the argument could be made it made the Empire OP, and it was just a little bit OP with larger characters. Sort of Tree Men, Law of Life combo could be a pain in the ass to deal with. But that seems like quite a significant nerf for life magic. Realm of the Wood Elves, just the AI again, guys. AI of Wood Elves, they're more defensive, but at times they will just burst out and have an attack. So something to watch out for in your Bretonnia campaigns. But the idea is them just going on their wild hunt. So look out for that. But I like this. I like this change very, very much. It's probably my favorite change they're making because it's just to go and suit with the lore a little bit more. The fact that they were conquering half of the known world, very un-Wood Elf-like. And the fact they're just staying in their woods and just riding out from time to time, probably going raiding, is actually more suitable and actually makes a bit more sense. And yeah, just a couple more changes there. And Morgul will never look for peace for the Wood Elves. Good. He should never be looking for peace in the first place. And I do quite like their little gag here. Orion, the king of the Wood Elves, has issued a proclamation throughout Athalor denying his resemblance to Mel Gibson. Alright, let's move on. Multiplayer abilities, character upgrades. Essentially, this is just a list of stuff that they've added which will automatically be selected or automatically attributed to multiplayer characters. And their costs have been adjusted to fit that. So it's not the same cost. There'll be a number of different cost adjustments for multiplayer to look out for. And a number of other quest battle maps that have just been added to the pool for multiplayer maps, which is good to see. I'm glad the Silver Spire's on there, Void of Healthend. Some really cool ones. The Warpstone Mine on multiplayer, good to see. Really just good all round. Just adding more maps to multiplayer. Can't say anything bad about that. These are some of this is like overall general ability stuff they've gone over. So they reduce movement speed for vortex spells, so they'll stop moving about so much, which is really good. I like that. A bit more reliable magic in terms of vortex spells, and it makes them a little bit more useful as well. Spell power tweak to match strength. That's interesting. I'm not quite sure what they mean by that. Is that maybe numbers? But armor effect spells have had a bit of a buff as well. So we're going to see, and I'm going to go over this a little bit more when we get to specifically the lore of metal. But this kind of makes the lore of metal stuff a bit more viable, which is something that people have been asking for a long time. And they've made some adjustments to Lore of Wilds and Lore of Beasts to make their recharge rates more consistent with other Lords of Magic. So I think that's maybe, I guess, maybe improving Amber Spear and stuff like that. They used to take ages to recharge. But I have individual sections on the Lords of Magic, so we can take a look at them. Lore of Wild made consistent their cooldown times. They don't go into specifics of that, but I'm hoping that means things like Amber Spear, Flock of Doom, and stuff like that has been adjusted. Okay. Vile Tide cost reduced. Bray Scream cost reduced. Devolve damage now peaks against 45 men or more. So the more men you use it against, the better it is. And that damage has been increased by 50%. Now, whether that makes this is the thing. I loved Devolve when it was there, when it was out on campaign. I understood how it completely broke multiplayer, but I was still a bit bummed to see it go. But let's see what it can do with this 50% damage increase buff. That could be very cool and could make another sort of weapon in the retinue of the Beastmen. That would be fun to see again. And a couple more cost reductions for Lore of Wild Magic. Mantle of Gork. Minus 30 armaduring. Reduced from 55 to 35. Oh, that's been nerfed a little bit. And the cost has gone down a little bit. Flock of Doom damage curve to reach max efficiency against targets with 120 men while significantly reducing damage for lower entity count units. So Flock of Doom, use it against full units now, not against damaged units. It will be less and less useful. So bear this one in mind, guys, when using Lore of Beasts. And Lore of Beasts will be one of the available lores to Bretonnia as well. That Flock of Doom best used against full health units with full men, and that's where it can do the most damage now. And increased cost, the Flock of Doom upgraded to 12. Increased duration from, so looks like Lore of Wild has taken a bit of a buff because Magic, a lot of the costs have been reduced, and Devolve might be back in a big way, but we'll have to wait and see. And same with Lore of Beasts, Magic costs reduced, seems to be all round really, and that's very good. I'm glad to see that. And Flock of Doom, interesting new approach to it, that they want you to hit fuller health units rather than units that are closer to death or have less men in them. Some vampire stuff now. Strigoi, increased cost of command of Unliving, upgraded from 12 to 18. So that's been nerfed a little bit. Well, at least the cost has gone up to make it match up. Raised Dead increased as well. This is the balance they were talking about, Raised Dead. So from 2 to 3, increased cost of Raised Dead upgraded to 4, added 5-second cooldown. Doubled power of Curse of Undeath from 4 health per second per unit to 8 health per second per unit. Okay, so that's a big buff. Reduced cost of Van Hel's Dance Macabre from 5 to 4. Gaze of Nagash cost reduced from 9 to 8. So a bit of a debuff for Raise the Dead, a little bit of one, and sort of increase for everything else in Lore of Vampires. Lore of Life, again, reduced the power of Life Bloom by 60%. It's just huge. Oh, that's such a bummer that they've done that to Life Bloom. But I can see why for some armies, Life Bloom teamed with them could make it a bit OP. Earthblood cost increased. Flesh to Stone. Armor benefits increased along with a lot of the armor stuff. They look to make the armor bonuses a bit more significant, it looks like, in this update. So armor increase, Flesh to Stone. Dwellers Below, cost reduction by 1. Now let's go on to some greenskin magic. Gaze of Mork, increased projectile size, increased explosion damage, reduced cost. So big buff to Gaze of Mork. Brainbuster, cheaper. Ed Butter, cheaper. Here we go, more expensive. Sneaky Stabbing changed to single target. Oh, rather than an area of effect. So that's something to... I think, what was it, an area of effect? Anyways, change to a single target. Vindictive Glare, increase in projectile size, reduction in cost. Gork will fix it. Duration decrease, cost decrease. So maybe matching up, but that duration decrease seems quite more punchy than the cost decrease. So a slight nerf on that. And Curse of the Bad Moon, decreased cost. So it really looks like they're just trying to just encourage a bit more use of magic overall in all of these laws. Lord of Light, again with the armor buffs becoming a bit more significant. And the cost increase there matching Far's protection. Shem's Burning Gaze, increase in projectile size. So all the projectiles seem like they're getting a buff in most of the laws of magic. Light of Battle, change to single target. Time Warp, reduce cost. That might encourage people to use that a bit more. Banishment upgraded, 20 to 20. Reduce cost. Harmonic Convergence. Oh, okay. Armor, for Law of Heavens, armor remained at 30. And the relative power to other armor effects was reduced. Okay, so Harmonic Convergence is no longer the top dog when it comes to armor buffs, if it was, and is now just in line with everything else, it looks like. Curse of Midnight Wind. Armor decrease has been boosted up, so buffing that, and the cost goes up as well. Comet of Cassandora. Slight increase in AP explosion damage. Good, because Comet of Cassandora takes ages to come, and it's good that it can do a bit more damage. Law of Metal, big one for Gelt. But it seems like all the laws are getting this buff, but because Law of Metal has a lot of like armor things to do with it, then we've got Plague of Rust having much more of an effect, doubling the effect of Plague of Rust from minus 15 armor to minus 30, and the cost has not quite doubled, but gone up significantly. Oh no, the duration has gone up significantly, and the cost has actually gone down. So that is a big buff to Plague of Rust. Searing Doom, reduced cost. Glittering Robe, again, going through all these things with the armor buffs that all the laws of magic seem to be getting, from 15 to 30. Duration goes up as well, and cost is reduced. So Glittering Robe, Plague of Rust, buffs, and yeah, Searing Doom costs less. Gehenna's Golden Hounds, reduce detonation force to increase reliability against light entities. Okay, because they did this with, we're going to get to the factions later on, but just as a sort of brief view for the dwarves, what they did was Flame Cannon no longer does as much detonation force, and the idea there is that's actually a buff for the Flame Cannon, because the Flame Cannon used to hit, and it used to throw everyone about, so the next shot maybe hit less people. And the idea with this, and obviously with Gehenna's Hounds, is it doesn't spread people out as far, so they're still more concentrated, and Gehenna's Golden Hounds is still doing the same amount of damage, so it's hitting more people, and with the reduction of Vortex movement for all Vortex spells, it essentially means Gehenna's Golden Hounds are going to not move about as much, be a bit more reliable, as well as not throw people about as much, so hit more units in the amount of time it's active. So a good buff for Gehenna's Golden Hounds. And Final Transmutation reduced by 2 for the normal version and reduced by 4 for the upgraded version. So really, Law of Metal, a bit of a buff. Is it enough to make Gelt more reliable, a better pick? I don't know. One of the things I found in the comments below that CA put in was that Gelt's actually getting a reduction to his multiplayer cost as well. So maybe with these buffs and the multiplayer cost reduction, along with Kemmler, who's getting one, might be worth taking them now a bit more. But that remains to be seen. They didn't specify how much the multiplayer point reduction was when they made that comment. Law of Shadows, range of Mystifying Miasma reduced by half. Cost reduced as well by 2. Enfeebling Foe reduced for cost. Withering Armor, again getting the armor buff that everything's getting, so minus 30 instead of minus 15. And the cost has gone up as well. No, the duration has gone up, cost has gone down. With all these armor ones, effect has gone up, duration has gone up, cost has gone down. Orcum's Mind Razor, 44 armor piercing damage to 36, so that's got debuff, and the duration's been reduced as well. So Occam's Mind Razor, not as good as it once was, but the cost has been reduced, so that might be in scale and still might make it worth it. Law of Fire, Cascading Cloak, Reduce the armor penetrating damage from that. Reduce the duration as well. And reduce the cost. Reduce the cost of Fireball, which is cool to see. Burning Head, just having for that Vortex thing that all the Vortex spells are getting. Movement speed by 25, so they won't move around as much. Flamestorm again, reduction in that movement speed, I imagine. Yeah, and with Flamestorm, it doesn't fling people about as much, so it can do more damage, much like Gehenna's Golden Hounds. And cost reduction by 6. That's pretty good. I do like Flamestorm. If any of you guys have been watching my Empire campaign, you may see I had a fantastic Flamestorm cast that I'm still delighted about to this day in that campaign. Aspect of the Dread Knight. Reduction cost. Doom and Darkness. Reduction cost. Soul Blight and upgraded. Removed missile damage and leadership debuffs. Oh, that's interesting. But the armor, again, has been buffed up to that 30 measure. The duration has gone up. The cost has gone... Oh, the cost has gone up on Soul Blight, as opposed to some of the other armor buffs and debuffs. Interesting. Fate of Yuna will now peak against units with more than 36 entities, rather than 60, dealing around 2.6k damage on large. Wow. Okay. So Fate of Yuna has got a buff because it's working at full power with much less troops. So that's interesting. And the cost has gone up. Purple Sun, movement reduction, as with all the vortexes we've been seeing today. Okay, guys, another huge list of abilities. Added max usage free for Arrow of Kurnos. Oh, so that's not... You can't spam Arrow of Kurnos anymore. Increased range to 600. That's pretty far. Reduced range of Wrath and Ruin. Reduced range of Maternal Instincts. Scourge. Axe of Dargo. A whole bunch of stuff going on here in terms of the abilities, guys. Do check this one out. I'm not going to go through all of these. Nothing that particularly jumped out at me. Slayer of Kings. Has been buffed. Archaon himself has got a buff all round. He's got more armor as well. We'll get to that when we see the Chaos region. But Archaon's had a bit of a buff all round. Reichland Runefangs up for a longer duration. But that's a cool one, guys. Have a look at that. I'll put a link to all of this in the description below. Ballistic Calibration, duration increased. Entrenched, duration increased. So the abilities all seeming to get mostly a buff. Runax of Grombrindal, reduced. Okay, Grombrindal's taken a bit of a nerf with both his Runax and his No Fear. But his cost increased for his Smoke Bomb. What? Oh yeah, duration increased. So duration increased on his Smoke Bomb, and the cost has gone up for that as well. And he's been nerfed on his Has No Fear and Runax and Revenge Incarnate. And Spite of the Bad Moon's gone down. So it looks like a bit of a mixed bag for Grombrindal, but a bit of a nerf, a slight nerf on some of his abilities. And Hounds of Orion, much like many of the Vortexes, the detonation force has been decreased, so they can do more damage to lighter armored units. Now, here's some of the passive stuff. Again, guys, a lot of stuff on this list. Something wicked this way comes this wham. I thought that was this way. But from 38 to 40. Just a lot of cost fixes, ranges, Swarm of Flies, which is the new thing for the zombie dragons. Range of 30. Or maybe it's not a new thing. Maybe I just haven't used a zombie dragon in a really long time. Squiggly Beast, Crown of Damnations, added immunity to psychology. Great Book of Grudges, got a buff from 8 to 12. And the High King increased cost from 81 to 156. Now, these are kind of multiplayer ability attachments, so I think the heroes will just have these automatically, going from some of the earlier notes they said. So, Dark Mail to Kazarak, Filth Mace to Chaos Lords, Hellfire Sword to Exalted Heroes, remove potions of... Undead can't get potions of full hardiness. Potions to Beast Lords and Dwarf Lords. That could be a big one. Added potions of strength and speed to Vampire Lords and Strigoi Ghoul Kings. Gave Sartorial the Everwatcher Stand or Die. And added the Skull Wand of Kaloth to the Orc Shaman. Interesting. Now, in terms of the individual factions, we have Hexwraiths, plus 10 charge bonus. Helman Gors, minus 200 cost in the multiplayer battles. I suppose that's because he's just slow in his corpse cart, but plus 150 if you give him his corpse cart. So minus 50 overall in the corpse cart than what he was before. That's how I read that, guys. Stearnsman plus 100, Manfred plus 75 with his zombie dragon, Vlad plus 200 on multiplayer and 500 on campaign. That might make him a bit punchy cost-wise on campaign. Red Duke costs more. Mortis Engine has been debuffed in terms of its HP to make it a little bit more easy to kill, which I actually welcome that one because those Mortis Engines are a nightmare to kill in multiplayer. Terrorgeist, plus 5 leadership, plus 1 splash. Vargulf, plus 5 leadership. Black Coach, big buffs coming in for the Black Coach. Plus 20 weapon strength, plus 20 armor piercing weapon strength. Nice. Black Coach getting probably the most significant buff there out of the vampire counts. Make it a bit more usable. I don't think I've ever seen a Black Coach in a multiplayer battle, but that might make it a bit more of a viable option. Nope. And the Wood Elves, guys. Eternal Guard, plus 25, with shields, plus 50. That's quite a big increase for what was a relatively cheap infantry unit. Wood Elf Rangers, Wildwood Rangers, minus 5 armor piercing weapon damage. Glade Guard, minus 10 range. That's rubbish. Deepwood Scouts, so Deepwood Scouts, plus 10 range. So they've gone excessive with the range, the Deepwood Scouts. Glade Guard gone down. I suppose that's to justify their cost a little bit more. And the Way Watchers, plus 2 ammo, increased marksmanship. So they're more likely to hit, I take it. I don't think that's a stat that's ever surfaced necessarily, but that's interesting. So to justify the huge cost of the Deepwood Scouts and the Way Watchers, it looks like they've debuffed the Glade Guard a little bit and improved the Way Watchers and the Deepwood Scouts a bit more as well. Minus 2 melee damage for the Deepwood Scouts, plus 8 speed for the Way Watchers. That's actually really cool. They can run away and they can kite much more effectively. I like all of these Wood Elf changes, actually. They make a lot of sense to me. Greenskins, a lot of changes here. Plus 10 armor for the Trolls. What? Plus 35 HP per unit. 10% physical resistance for Savage Orcs. All round, that looks like. All Savage Orcs get a 10% physical resistance added to them. Charge bonuses, plus 3. Melee defense, plus 2. That's for everything except for the Arrow Boys, but the Arrow Boys still get that 10% physical resistance. I suppose that's maybe to show lore-wise, although their paint technically only ever really gave them magic resistance, I think that was the idea. But I guess they're using the same philosophy that the paint gives the Savage War Orcs the idea that they're resistant to all sorts of things. So they maybe gave them 10% physical resistance. Forest Goblin Spider Riders, plus 1 armor piercing damage, minus 1 missile damage, minus 50 cost. I don't know if that's gonna make a huge impact, but there we go. And the Goblin Wolf Chariots, probably an attempt to make them a bit more playable on multiplayer, plus 1 projectile per shot. So I'm guessing that would effectively double their damage output when they're firing arrows, I'm guessing. Empire, Carl Franz, price increase. Amber Wizard, charge bonus. Except for when on the Griffin. So, charge bonus on everything else, but when he's on his most chargy animal, he gets a debuff on his charge. Knights of Blazing Sun plus 100. Reichsguard minus 100. Interesting. Dwarfs. 10 AP missile damage plus 5 missile damage. Okay, Organ Gun. Buff for the Organ Gun. Now this looks like a debuff for the Flame Cannon, but as I explained with the Vortex stuff, if you decrease the detonation force, you send units you're less likely to go flying, so they'll spread out less and sort of be more, and the second follow-on shots from your other cannons will more likely hit a larger group. So actually this is a buff, I think, for the Flame Cannon in a way. Gyro Bomber plus 1 spread, so I'm guessing that just makes it a bit more inaccurate. And a minus 3 reload time, so it'll fire more, be a little bit less accurate. Iron Drakes, a buff to health points. Goblobber plus 100 cost. Warriors of Chaos, Marauder Horsemen, cheaper. Chosen, buff. Always like it when Chaos get a buff. Archaon the other Chosen. This is what I was talking about. Plus more hit points. Archaon with his, I'm assuming with Dorgar, his horse. Was it Dorgar? Maybe I've been mispronouncing that all this time. Anyway, Archaon plus 20 armor on himself, and if you consider he has that plus 20 armor plus that bonus to Slayer of Kings, Archaon's had a bit of a buff. Chaos Trolls plus 35 hit points per entity. That's the same as the greenskin ones, except the greenskin ones got an armor bonus as well. And indeed, the Chaos Trolls armored for Chaos get the exact same buff that the Chaos Trolls greenskins got. So I think essentially they're keeping the Chaos Trolls armored as the most armored trolls, but they wanted to make the greenskin trolls a little bit more durable than they currently were. That's what it seems like they were doing with the trolls. Beastmen, a lot of stuff for the Beastmen. So Chariot minus 400, maybe make it a bit more likely that people will use it with the Beast Lord. Beast Lord increased entity size. What? Oh, I suppose that gives him more mass for charges. That's all I can guess. So, and make him a little bit less throw-aboutable if someone charges him on a big monster. Minus 250 cost, minus 30 armor, 15 charge bonus, 10 weapon, making him a bit more offensive than defensive. Kazarak plus 10 charge bonus. Oh, they've slowed down his attacks. Interesting. And made him less durable with minus 20 armor, but made him cheaper as well. And that 15%, 15 charge bonus, and 1 collision attacks max targets with the Chariot. So a little bit of a mixed bag there for Kazarak, just changing the way he plays a little bit. Little bit boost, get him to charge in more, a little bit more offensive, but not as durable. Vanguard deployment for Kazarak as well. Interesting. And that's his Chariot stuff there as well. Actually, did I miss that? Yeah, no, yeah, Kazarak. Vanguard deployment as well. Bray Shaman, plus 35 strength, 35 armor piercing, weapon strength. Bray Shaman's a bit of a buff and cost reduction, so make them a bit more viable. On the Chariot, cost reduction. Malagor, buffs all round, 40 weapon strength, 35 armor piercing weapon strength, 10% charge bonus. Buffs all round for Malagor. Bestigors, buffed up. Bigger unit size. Gore Herds, buffed up. Cygors, buffed up. Ungors, better leadership, lower charge bonus. Spearmen, that is. Ungors all more mass, less likely to be thrown about by charging cavalry or what have you. And Centaurs all hide in the woods now. Oh, yeah, they couldn't hide in the woods before. That was a bit silly. But yeah, all Centaurs can hide in the woods now. And that about sums it up, guys. I hope that was helpful, just to give you a couple of things to look out for with your upcoming Bretonnia campaigns next week, and how the game's going to change. Thanks very much for joining me on this one, guys. And for more Total War Warhammer news, lore, and gameplay, do subscribe, and please do drop a like. It really helps the channel grow. Hope you all have a great day. Thanks very much for watching, guys.